on income inequality and social mobility. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Paxson. I'm the president of Brown, and I'm really delighted to welcome two just superb, interesting speakers who are here with us today. The Mayor of Providence, Jorge Elorza, and Professor of Economics, John Friedman. And before I start, I want to thank the James M. and Catherine D. Stone Wealth and Income Inequality Project for sponsoring this work, and also more generally for supporting a lot of great Brown research and teaching in this area. So let me just give a few words to set up our discussion today. I think that reducing income inequality and increasing social mobility in America is one of the most profound policy challenges that we face right now, both in Providence, Rhode Island, but around the country, and indeed in countries around the globe. So nearly every economic report that you can read about income inequality or wealth inequality, etc., turns up the same findings. This is something where there is no debate, no controversy in economics. What we know is that income inequality is on the rise. It has been for some time. Social mobility is on a decline. And we know that a smaller fraction of children can expect to attain a living standard that is greater than their parents, which is something quite new for this country. And in addition to the economic consequences, I know a lot of people are concerned about the implications of growing income disparities on things like political polarization and social cohesion and the ability to talk across different perspectives. So that's the other thing we're grappling with. There is no single magic bullet to fixing these problems. I wish that there was one. And, I believe that it's really going to take the concerted efforts of federal, state, local policy members, policy organizations, community-based organizations, as well as think tanks and universities to think about how we can reduce inequality and increase mobility. And I know that higher education really has to play a role, really in two ways. One, by generating the research and knowledge that's going to help us develop the right policy solutions and to work collaboratively with policymakers to implement those solutions, but also by becoming greater engines of economic mobility on their own campuses. So before I introduce our speakers, you have to oblige me with a few minutes to brag about some of the things that Brown is doing and some of the things that I hope we'll be doing even better in the future. So, what is Brown doing to increase economic mobility in the country? And I think the most important thing we can do, and it's very much a work in progress, is to make a Brown education more accessible to lower income and middle income students. And, the work that we're doing here on campus, when I think about it, it's really reflected in a number of recent initiatives. One is, just this past year, eliminating package loans in the financial aid packages of all of our students, which is great. And what that does is it really helps students come here and study what they love and go away, hopefully, unencumbered by debt, being able to go into the careers of their choosing without having to worry about the finances. Another recent innovation that I would highlight is the creation of the UFly Center, which stands for Undocumented First-Gen and Low-Income Students. And what we're doing is empowering these students, helping them develop roadmaps for navigating life at Brown and life after Brown. And finally, I would point to some recently announced plans to provide free textbooks for low-income students at Brown. And we did a pilot this year, we're expanding it next year, very excited about that. And this is something that helps ensure that all of our students have the same access to the basic academic tools that you need to be successful in a university. So those are some things we're doing. Another thing I would note, and this is something that I talked to the mayor about, and it's also, again, a work in progress, we're very committed to improving the quality and quality of schools and the success of students right here in Providence. And you can look at some examples of what Brown is doing. We have a great after-school program at Debate Elementary School, which enriches students' learning. We bring a lot of students here to the Summer at Brown High School courses, which prepare students for college. And we do that by offering fellowships to our local students. And then there's a fund for the children of Providence that currently is supporting scholarships for local students at college after they graduate from Brown. And we're thinking really actively about how we can do more and better in our support of local public education. And the last thing I would just note is that we're really committed to growing the Providence economy, because economic growth is going to lift everybody up, at least if it's done right. And we're participating in initiatives, again, in partnership with the mayor, like the Urban Innovation Partnership, and we have our own blueprint called Brown and the Innovation Economy that we're following. So those are just some of the things that Brown is doing to try to increase economic mobility in this country. Now, the question for us today is not that, though. The question for us today is really how data and the university-based research that comes from using that data can inform policies and practices aimed at reducing income inequality and increasing social mobility, very much in partnership with local organizations and local governments. We can't do it alone. Research by itself isn't going to solve any problems at all. Now, those of you who think about what data is delivering, we have this remarkable data revolution going on, and access to new ways of gathering, curating, connecting data is helping us do incredible work in a wide range of fields, not just in the field that we're talking about today. So when I look at the mathematical and computational tools and the data that Brown researchers are developing, they hold promise for so many different things. Recent examples, we're using big data here at Brown to identify the therapeutic values of plants, improve biodiversity. Some of you who read the New York Times this weekend, there was a great article by Brown economics professor Emily Oster on using data to improve parenting. And we're doing some work on diagnosing traumatic brain injury using big data. And now, and this is the work that we're going to be seeing this afternoon and talking about, this data is demonstrating how street addresses shape children's trajectories and opportunities over their lives. With the Opportunity Atlas, which Professor John Friedman will talk about, and that he's done with a number of colleagues, this data, this analysis has enabled us to identify and map high and low opportunity areas in this country and better understand the characteristics and the things that lead to greater mobility. So with the data and analysis in hand, I think we can start to address some really important questions like, how do we identify which policies are most effective at increasing economic mobility? We can't do everything. What's going to work the best? How do we best tailor and target policies to specific neighborhoods and populations based on what the data is telling us? Again, we can't do everything, so targeting helps us do what we do more effectively. And then third, and maybe this is the hardest, and data can't tell us how to do this, which is how do we marshal the political will and the resources that we need to make change? And I hope that's something that we can discuss this afternoon. So these questions, I think, tee up the conversations that we're going to have today about restoring the American dream for everybody. I'm excited about it. So let me very briefly introduce our two presenters. John Friedman is Associate Professor of Economics and International Affairs and Public Policy at Brown. He is the Director of the Equality of Opportunity Project, and his research brings together theory and data, harnessing the power of large, complex administrative data sets to yield policy insights on a wide range of topics, including taxation, healthcare, and education. Following John's presentation, so he'll speak first, we'll hear from Mayor Jorge Elorza, who spearheaded efforts to make Providence a fantastic place to live and work and do business. He's intensely focused on building the human capital among members of the Providence community, focusing really on children, education, and economic success. He's been a collaborative partner and a friend to Brown in creating opportunities that benefit the people of the city. So after John speaks, the mayor will speak, and then we'll sit down and have a conversation and then open up the floor to questions. So John, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.